Imagine being the sole survivor of your entire family's brutal murder. For the close-knit Champion family from the small town of Cadiz, Kentucky, that unimaginable nightmare became a horrific reality one quiet Sunday morning in October 2014. Lindsay and Joy Champion were a beloved couple, pillars of their community. He worked at the local credit union. She was a cherished elementary school teacher. Their daughter Emily had followed her dreams, becoming a successful equine veterinarian in Louisiana, and their son Ryan, an Army veteran, had recently moved back home to Western Kentucky. On that fateful fall day, the Champions attended church services like they did every Sunday. Afterwards, Lindsay, Joy, and Emily, who was visiting from out of state, returned to the family's rural home. That's when an unimaginable tragedy struck. A barrage of gunshots suddenly rang out, shattering the tranquil morning. When the smoke cleared, Lindsay, Joy, and Emily lay dead, all three ruthlessly executed at point-blank range. Around 11:15 a.m., shortly after the family got back to their house, Lindsay's sister Lisa heard a series of loud gunshots coming from across the street where the Champions lived. Lisa thought it was very strange to hear gunfire at that time of day, so she went to investigate. That's when her nephew Ryan suddenly appeared at her front door. Ryan's wrists were bound together with duct tape, clutching a pistol. He urgently told Lisa to call 911. A man had broken into the Champion's home and attacked the family. Despite Ryan's calm demeanor, Lisa was alarmed to see the duct tape restraints and the gun in his hands.
911, what's your emergency? My nephew Ryan Champion just came to my door and his wrists have been tied with duct tape, and I haven't been able to find out what's wrong. I don't know what's happened. He just told me to call 911.
Is he physically hurt, or is it just...
He doesn't look like it, but he's totally distraught.
After calling the police, Lisa cut the tape off Ryan's wrists, and he insisted they go to his parents' home immediately, dreading what they might find. Lisa followed Ryan across the street. She was horrified when Ryan opened the door. There was a bullet hole, and Lisa could see her sister-in-law Joy's lifeless body right inside. Police and paramedics rushed to the scene. It was a grisly sight. Lindsay Champion's body was outside on the concrete patio, with obvious gunshot wounds to his head. Once inside the house, the scene grew even more disturbing. Emily had been bound with extensive duct tape wrapping, including across her face, with 2 bullet holes in her head. The fourth body of an unidentified man lay in the house as well. The entire town was left shaken to its core by the unfathomable act of violence against such an upstanding family. But the most shocking part, the murderer's sole survivor and star witness, was the Champion's own son and brother, Ryan himself. Trying to make sense of it all, Police Sergeant Carl Miller questioned the strangely calm Ryan about what happened. Ryan spun a harrowing tale about a deranged man named Vito Riservato, who he claimed had only met days earlier. According to Ryan's account, Vito had developed an instant, terrifying obsession with Emily after being hired to do some construction work at the Champion's home. On that Sunday morning, Ryan said Vito stormed into the house with a gun and duct tape, binding Ryan and Emily before executing them one by one when the parents arrived. Ryan claimed he was able to get free and shoot Vito dead during the chaos. Ryan's story seemed suspicious from the start. Why would Vito randomly kill the very woman he was fixated on? And how did Ryan escape unharmed? As more evidence emerged, it became clear Ryan's tale was riddled with gaping holes that didn't add up. At first, the horrified community rallied around the grieving Ryan as the tragic family's only living member. However, as Kentucky State Police investigators examined the crime scene evidence, gaping holes emerged in Ryan's version of events. Seasoned detectives' finely tuned instincts told them something wasn't adding up. with the civilian survivor's convenient story. Police got an unexpected break in the case when a local Waffle House employee revealed he had seen Ryan, Vito, and a mystery woman named Ann Plotkin meeting together days before the murders. It turned out Ann was Ryan's secret girlfriend and had been communicating between him and Vito, facilitating their scheme. Through a precise reenactment of the events and a review of the discarded duct tape as physical evidence, the detective realized that the truth was slowly getting unveiled thanks to the web of lies undoubtedly woven by Ryan Champion himself. On the contrary, it turned out that the serial killer wasn't a deranged, obsessed stranger who randomly targeted people. He was someone close to them, someone they trusted, someone who knew their secrets. In reality, it was Ryan who had planned everything from the beginning to end, as a cold-blooded act of revenge on his own family without any alibi. However, Ryan too wasn't left to his own devices. His conniving plot had two unlikely co-conspirators: Vito Riservato, a destitute hired hand whom Ryan employed, and Ann Plotkin, Ryan's secret lover, who acted as a channel of communication between the men. Phone records revealed that Vito might have been enticed into the scheme by the attractive offer of $30,000 from Ryan right after they finished the job, and that Ann may have been cast into the role of accomplice because she was in love with the killer, Ryan. That day there was treason in the air, yet nobody else knew about it but the plotters. And with each hapless Lindsay, Joy, and Emily being shot, Ryan in turn directed his rage toward Vito, the hired hand, shooting him dead also, so that there would be nobody left to testify. However, that did not last, as a gloom of shock and disbelief covered the town after the real face of the mastermind was exposed, and everybody knew who he was, and that he was the boy whom they all loved and they thought they knew very well. What seems to be the rationale of a boy killing his own thriving family in a way that is so merciless? The prosecution's theory was that Ryan's actions, rather than being impulsive, were the result of what one would call a double-edged sword. The struggle between deep-seated sibling rivalry towards his overachieving sister Emily and his greed for the family fortune. Despite his initial pleas of innocence, the overwhelming body of evidence amassed by investigators became incontrovertible. In a deal to avoid the death penalty, Ryan Champion ultimately pled guilty in 2016 to the cold-blooded murders of his parents, sister, and ill-fated accomplice Vito. He received a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of probation or parole. His cohort Ann Plotkin was handed 22 years for her role, though she only served 2 years before dying of illness while incarcerated. To start with, the eventual prosecuting attorney of the case, Carrie O.V. Wiggins, was initially for Ryan Champion to be put to death. Yet, a death sentence might stretch for years through various appeals, and for the last 10 years, there has been no execution in Kentucky. Therefore, the family understood the gravity of such circumstances and consented to the life sentence. Yet even after his unspeakable crimes, the unfathomable mystery remains. Just what would drive a human being to such despicable depths of depravity against their own flesh and blood? To this day, Ryan Champion has uttered not a single word of remorse or explanation for his inconceivable acts of betrayal that shattered his family and devastated their tight-knit community. He even refused to speak before his sentencing began. For Lisa Champion and the rest of the grieving relatives, the emotional trauma compounded day after day. After making the horrific discovery, Lisa was tormented seeing Ryan act like everything was normal in the days after, even giving interviews portraying himself as the tragic victim. For Lisa and others, it was sickening to watch Ryan try to manipulate them. They knew in their gut he was lying, but couldn't believe it at first. For those mourning the loss of Ryan's victims, his lack of compassion, humility, and remorse deepens their pain. Each visit to the gravesite of Lindsay, Joy, and Emily serves as a stark reminder of the senseless tragedy that ended their young lives.